I went to my first punk rock show closer to 10 years old. It was in a municipal park shelter house, and the one after that was in the basement of a Protestant church. So it wasn't really that unusual for me to perform closer to age 20 in a kitchen. There were kitchens, there were basements, there were attics, there were garages, there were living rooms. And the nice thing about these moments were that there was no stage, so there really wasn't any division between the audience and the artist. And I feel like the audience was just as important as the artist, because we were all friends. We knew the words to each other's songs. This seemed non-traditional, but it was its own tradition, the tradition of DIY, do-it-yourself punk rock. And we did it ourselves. We recorded our own albums, we produced our own records, we burned our own CDs, we made cases for them, as you see, and it was family style, it was camaraderie, it was community. And so we started bands and we started record labels. But what a record label meant to me was just that, just a label. I wrote on their Agriculture Records. This was a split release with my label Pop Monster Records back around 2006 when I moved here. But Agriculture Records was just some guy. His name was Eric. He lived in Ohio. And I was just some guy, Isaac. I lived in Illinois. And now I run Airship Records, which is basically the same thing, but just nicer stuff, kind of, because I work a full-time job now. But the idea of this compilation cassette was birthed from friends. It wasn't just me, and it wasn't even me to start with. It involved potatoes, but I'll talk more about that later. My friend Troy took that picture. I love it, downtown. So this was sort of where Airship started for me. A couple years ago, I started booking Mike and Molly's. This is my band Withershins playing Mike and Molly's at the very last show there. I miss it dearly, and it was part of this community that I feel like I inherited whenever I came here. And that place was how I met most of the artists on my label. It's an all-local label. And the great thing about Mike and Molly's was it felt like a basement. And I mean that in a very positive way. I mean that as a compliment. It didn't feel like the upstairs of a bar, even though it was. That is a basement right there. And this was Era Records. This was the back of a record shop. This was an amazing space that I miss dearly. This was the Champaign location. This was a record label that then became a record store that was an all-ages venue. And I sort of lament the dearth of all-ages opportunities for rock shows in our town right now, because that's where I came from. And I like... This picture is from whenever they were building the Hyatt. For Friday Night Live, my band Withershins played in front of that, and it just stuck out to me because that's where Periscope Records used to be, in that building. And I was thinking about all these institutions that made me name my label Airship, like an inheritance, and things that had passed on. This was from a house show where the tenants moved out. Some things are just trends about DIY and punk culture, underground music throughout time that's nationwide, worldwide, but also the transient nature of Champaign, Urbana. We deal with a sort of difficult turnaround with artists and stuff. But I come from a place where none of this was here, but the moment that kind of spurred me to be who I am and do the things that I'm doing is right here. That is Mark Paffey of the band Bear vs. Shark, putting me in a headlock. He jumped off stage to grab me and threw me on stage, all while singing and yelling, by the way, to tell an audience that I had booked this show. I was 18, and that, 10 years later, here I am on stage with a band on my record label, Terminus Victor. They had invited me on stage to talk. And even though I'm a performer and I love being on stage and I love people looking at me, I feel like it's most real and I'm most valuable whenever I'm sort of championing other people. So with my record label, I can do things like address the public to say, hey, these people are great, because I don't like saying I'm great. This was from that place that Ralph was talking about, the Velvet Elvis. It was a loft venue, as it were. We tried to make Mike and Molly's feel that way. This is a band on my label called Marathon. They performed this piece, Sanctuary, which is a 35-minute piece of music, sort of meant to give you a sort of mental, emotional, and body high. And I was in the back of the room when that picture was taken, and to be able to watch other people enjoy something that I put together that's not necessarily something that's of me, that's Hum playing my living room. That was one of the cooler things I ever got to do, but I didn't really do it. We all did it together. And it's this sense of community and camaraderie and helping each other out and being involved This is where I live now. It's a spot in Urbana called Library House. Something about me, I don't think I'll ever live a place where music isn't happening. And the way I like to do it is to bring people together for this sense of culture and goodwill. And my friend Kate helped me put together these CDs. This was Vlad, my friend Vlad, in a parking lot somewhere in Champaign, said we should make a sampler of all these local bands on this Pygmalion gig. And so we did it, and this was just before I started Airship, and these living room moments are sort of what it was all about. This is my first band I was ever in. We were called Glint. We were best friends in high school, and then we became a band. And sort of what happens now in my life is I join a band with people, and they become my best friends. But one thing I'm doing with my friends right now that's more important than anything about my record label or anything, that's my friend Jessica. She and I went to Philadelphia for the Girls Rock Camp Alliance Conference to learn how to start a girls rock camp, which is cultivating a space to empower and encourage girls to become more involved in rock and roll, because I am a dude, ostensibly, in rock and roll, and there's a lot of us, and we need to create more space. So while I'm doing that work, I'm spending less time at bars and more time at home with my dog. But I would encourage you to become involved in any way that you can, and if you'd ever like to talk about rock and roll, girls rock, or my dog, come find me. And thanks very much for listening. Happy New Year.